My book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, is not just the story of my own camp, but is the story of many camps all over the world who are promoting the social and emotional growth of kids through intentional strategies. This bonus episode is a recording of one of my Happy Campers interviews with a camp director from one of the day and resident camps who were in my series that was originally aired on Facebook Live and is also available in video form on my website at sunshine-parenting.com. Enjoy this conversation with a camp director who runs an amazing program. Well, welcome to this Happy Campers interview. I am having so much fun talking with camp directors from day camps and resident camps all over the United States about the amazing transformations that happen with kids at summer camp. Particularly, we're talking about the social and emotional growth and the character traits kids develop and how camps can partner with parents and really help them raise kids who become thriving adults. So today in the series, I'm really happy to be interviewing Alison Moeschberger from Gold Arrow Camp. This is a camp that I know quite well. But for today's interview, I'm interviewing Alison about Gold Arrow Camp. So I am purely the interviewer today. But this is the camp where I've actually spent the last 34 summers. So I do know Gold Arrow quite well. So I'm excited today to welcome Alison Moeschberger to the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me here for this interview. This is great.
It was easy for us to get to each other today.
Yeah.
So Alison, first, why don't you introduce just a little bit about your background, kind of what you did before you worked at camp, how you discovered camp, just tell your camp story.
Sure. So I actually started out at Gold Arrow as a camper. I was 8 years old and I was really excited to come to camp. I went to a lot of camps as a kid, and this was definitely my favorite, the one I came back to the most, for many reasons. But I continued to go to Gold Arrow through high school. I was a counselor in training. As soon as I was in college, I wanted to work on staff, and so I was a counselor that first year after my freshman year of college. And it actually led me to change my major. I started out in college wanting to major in science. I thought that was the career path for me. And one summer as a counselor at camp, and I just knew I needed to work with kids. Most importantly, I needed to be at camp. So I actually changed my major to education so that I could have my summers free to come to camp. And I ended up as a teacher for 5 years. Really enjoyed that, enjoyed the time in the classroom, but camp was really the motivator behind that. And so it's really my passion and where I get a lot of joy and just absolutely love everything that we do at camp, certainly. And I was lucky enough to bring my husband, Soy, to camp as well, and kind of indoctrinate him into the camp life. He did not grow up going to camp as much. So it's been a fun family adventure.
Okay, so I want to hear, first of all, the school where you worked in Colorado Springs was really a unique school. What was the name of it? And you were teaching 6th grade, is that right?
Yeah, I was teaching 6th grade. That was part of the elementary school, and it's called the Classical Academy. It's a fantastic charter school focusing on classical education and just wonderful character-based education. It was a wonderful experience, great school. I learned so much about working with kids and had just a wonderful experience there.
I remember you telling me about reading aloud to the kids. Were there some books like that was part of the curriculum there?
Yeah, so every year there were specific books we had to read aloud to the kids, even at 6th grade, which certainly going into it was surprising for me that would be a requirement at 6th grade, that it seemed like the kids were too old, but you know what, they loved it, and we bring that into camp as well. We read to all of our campers before bedtime at night, and even those high school kids, they love it. And I really learned that there. I learned that is very important, but certainly as part of the curriculum there, that was pretty key.
Yeah, that's so great. I don't know if you remember this, but how you used to introduce yourself when you were teaching, but you would come to camp for the summer?
Sure. I think what you're alluding to is I would tell the staff every year that that I was a camp director, and in the off season I was a teacher. So yes, even though a majority of my time was spent teaching, certainly for me, I felt like the summer was where my passion was, and where I felt like I was making the most difference.
So what areas do you focus on now at camp? Where is your kind of role? What do you like to do most at camp?
Sure. So kind of all along, I've been on the activity side of camp. I did do a little stint as a group counselor at the end of one summer, but for the most part, I kind of focus on activities. My biggest passion is on the water. Luckily, half of our activities are on the water. So I'm very, very much interested in all those water activities. But I just like to kind of help with staff training, kind of making sure that everybody has the good teaching skills to kind of instruct the activities. I love to hire the staff and train them when they arrive at camp. That's a really big passion area for me. And certainly just kind of making sure that all the things are operating as we really want them to. That's my goal in the summer.
It seems like you also have a lot of interest in the kind of junior counselors and like the younger kind of coming up future staff people. What do you like working with them? What are some of the things you do with them during the summer?
I really do love working with the junior counselors, and I think it's an important place for me to be involved because we really are training those kids to be counselors. And so every minute I invest with them is really going to pay back in huge ways when they become staff members. And so it's a great opportunity for them to really test out their leadership ability and just kind of learn about the other side of camp. And so one of the things that I do with them is lifeguard training, which is something that I really enjoy. I do that with the staff as well, but I can train them as lifeguards and really kind of get to know them through that process, get to know how they operate, how much grit they really have, whether they can dig down deep and stay in the lake for hours at a time, just performing rescues. It's a lot of fun. But anytime I get to spend with the junior counselors, I think is really just a lot of fun and a big benefit, certainly as they become counselors. And seeing them as we've hired them back has been really great. They do learn a lot in that program. So I think it's certainly worth all of our time to put a lot into that program.
Sure is. So let's talk about Gold Arrow. So for people who don't know Gold Arrow, why don't you talk about where the camp is located, how many campers come, how long they come for, ages, just all that kind of basic information to tell people about Gold Arrow.
Sure. So we're located in Central California, kind of in the mountains above Fresno. It's a traditional outdoor camp, so we offer all the activities that are kind of non-competitive, but traditional when you think of camps: sailing, horseback riding, rock climbing, all those really kind of high excitement, fun activities, but again, the non-competitive focus. Our campers are about 6 to 15 are the ages that the campers are. We take kids all the way through the first year after high school starts. So after 9th grade is their last year as a camper. We do have a couple teen programs available as well, the junior counselor program. And then we also have something called the Outdoor Leadership course, which is an extended backpacking program with some leadership training and some opportunities for campers to really develop their wilderness skills and leadership in a nice small group setting. So that's kind of the teen program aspect.
So with the teen programs, do kids for the junior counselor or the outdoor leadership program, do kids have to have been campers younger, or can they just come in new? Like, so if a parent has a teenager, are either of those programs available to teens who haven't been to camp before? Sure,
that's a great question. So the junior counselor program is available only to people who've been campers before. We do rely on them to help younger campers, and they need to have just a basic familiarity with camp and understand our philosophy and kind of the rules and their way around camp. So that's a really important part of that program. The outdoor leadership course is actually offered for any campers, even if they've not been a camper in one of the other programs. Most of the campers, I think, are returning campers from just being in our regular 2-week program, but certainly it is open to other people as well.
Okay. But for the regular, and what are the regular session lengths? Like when do most kids come for how long?
Sure. Most kids come for 2 weeks. That's our main program. We have 4 2-week sessions. Before that, we have a 1-week water sports specialty camp on our Shaver Island Outpost, which is quite a blast and a huge part of camp. Certainly, I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And then at the end of the summer, we do have a 1-week program as well. We call it mini camp. And it is mostly geared towards some younger campers who are just trying out camp for the first time. Certainly our goal with that program is for campers to try it once or twice, fall in love with camp, and then come to the regular 2-week program. We just can't possibly offer everything to them in that 1 week. So the 2-week program is what we specialize in, and I think what the best experience is for campers. But if they're not quite ready, or even maybe if the parents aren't quite ready for 2 weeks of camp, then mini camp is a good way to kind of get their feet wet and see what they like.
Okay, great. I think you covered everything about the basics about camp. I'm wondering now, just in terms of for parents kind of thinking about camp, what's kind of the philosophy or focus of camp? What is it that you think like draws most people to Gold Arrow and makes it a good fit for some kids?
I think there are so many things that draw parents to Gold Arrow, but I think for the most part, the part of the philosophy that is really important and really central for us is just the relationships. And that's relationships with peers, relationships with counselors and campers, and just really focusing on real, authentic, face-to-face relationships without technology, and just building up kids' social skills and their confidence and being able to navigate these social situations that we all encounter in real life, and just really giving them the confidence to do that well.
So what are some of the things that you do to just kind of help kids or like train the counselors or help the kids foster friendships or become better at making friends and keeping friends while they're at camp?
I think that's just so important. And I think sometimes kids are a little bit off the mark on what makes a friend or, what kinds of things go into a friendship. But, one of the things that's really important for us and our philosophy is we keep our campers in cabin groups with their same age peers. So either exactly the same age or within one grade level of each other. And so keeping them in those cabin groups with that same age group is a very central part of that friendship facilitation. But also that cabin group serves as kind of like their family while they're at camp. Mm-hmm. So they travel to activities together, do activities together all day long. And they have a group counselor with them, assigned to them all day. And so that group counselor travels to the activities with them. And it's kind of like their big sister, big brother, or parent as they're at the activities. But they're the ones who are there to foster those friendships, teach the kids how to encourage each other at activities, kind of acknowledge when campers are maybe hesitant to try an activity and how the rest of the cabin can come in and support their friends and kind of do those things that make those relationships stronger. And every night, one of the things that I think is very important to friendship making is each cabin has its own campfire pit. And so each cabin gets to have a campfire every night at camp. They sit around the fire, they talk, they debrief about the day. They talk about, their goals for life and all kinds of fun things. They roast marshmallows, they pop popcorn, and it's just such a fun experience. I wish I could do that every night with my own family. I just think it's a really nice bonding time. And I think that's one of the things that really brings campers together.
I think we forgot to talk about your family. Why don't you mentioned Soy, your husband.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you talk about your kids and how old they are?
So Soy is my husband, and we have 2 kids. We have Ellie and Greta. They're 6 and 3. And this year, Ellie is actually a Gold Arrow camper for the first time. Pretty excited about it. So she's finishing kindergarten this year, and she will be in there with the youngest of the girls, and she's definitely ready for camp. She's grown up coming to camp every summer of her life so far, but I think this time being in the mix of it will be really fun for her and certainly fun for me. It's neat to think that after 25 years, I can experience camp from yet another new perspective.
Oh, I bet it'll be really a good experience for you. You'll probably learn some new things.
I will have to apologize to the counselors. I mean, I hope I'm a good camp parent.
Yeah, you better not hover.
I think I'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other kind of philosophical things or sort of either character traits or growth related things that are a big focus at Gold Arrow?
Sure. So every year we like to have a theme for the summer, and that theme kind of comes out of our brainstorming about what do our campers need. Maybe do they know they need it or they don't know, but just things that we know that would support them in their life at camp and their life at home, and just help develop, just strong character in these kids. So last year, we were talking about friendships, and our focus was on friendship last year. And so we actually had a great friendships facilitation at our kind of opening assembly, where we were able to really teach kids, like, here's the process of introducing yourself to someone new, and here's how you then build that into a friendship. And I think just that explicit teaching was so important. Mm-hmm. This year, our theme is filling buckets, which I'm pretty excited about. It comes from a great children's book, but the gist of it is that we all kind of have this invisible bucket, and we all have the power to fill each other's buckets or to empty each other's buckets. And you fill someone's bucket by encouraging them, giving them compliments, and helping them. And then you take away from their buckets if you're kind of doing the opposite of those things. And so I think this theme this year I'm really excited about, because it's going to get campers to understand their power and the power that they have with each other, both positive and negative, and really challenge them, push them to make those experiences and those interactions with each other very positive. Mm-hmm. And then I hope they will go home and kind of keep that in mind, and keep the idea of the buckets in mind, and be able to really influence others in a very positive way. Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of camps have these different things like this that they teach kids, and like maybe a phrase or something that will stick. And it was funny because a couple days ago I was talking to Amy from Camp Deerhorn, and they teach their kids about being turtle flippers. And she shared this YouTube video, and it's linked to her interview, but it shows a turtle coming across a friend who's flipped over, like who's on its back. And the turtle spends all this time, like just nudging and nudging and nudging and nudging until he gets his friend flipped over. And then they walk off together, and it's like,
oh, that's so sweet,
so cute. But the campers go home talking about, I'm going to be a turtle flipper. So I'm hoping that in your case, it'll be, I'm going to go fill some buckets today.
Yeah.
I'm going to I know how important that is. So I think that's something that camps do that really carries over long beyond their time at camp. So these lessons or, practices that they do at camp that they can take home. So that actually leads me. So one of the things I'm asking camp directors is, what are things that parents can kind of do at home that can sustain some of these practices or traditions that you do at camp?
I think certainly just being aware of what the themes are each summer, and just asking about the experience at camp, and just kind of talking with their kids about, tell me about your counselor. And what we hear from parents is that kids will talk about camp all year. They're at camp for 2 weeks out of 52, and it is the focus of conversation. They remember the songs. They remember every detail about their counselors. They remember those friendships, and those friendships from camp are just so strong. And formed in just those 2 weeks. And sometimes kids are saying even stronger than their friendships at school, where they see kids every day. Mm-hmm. So I think just being aware of asking about what was going on and reinforcing some of that, and just kind of keeping up with where their kids are in terms of missing camp, and just encouraging, looking forward to the next year.
Sure. Okay, so what else have I asked about? You talked a little bit, you mentioned the Shaver Island Outpost. Mm-hmm. So where is the main camp located? What's that location? And then...
Sure. So we're located on Huntington Lake. We have about 1.5 miles of shoreline along Huntington Lake. It's a 6-mile long lake, and really not a lot of people are up there. It's most people stop at Shaver Lake, which is about 30 minutes down the mountain from us, because it's lower in elevation, easier access, and a lot more opportunities for the public, more rentals and restaurants and things. Huntington Lake, beautifully abandoned in the summer, and we take advantage of that fully. It's a great sailing lake. There's consistent wind coming from the same direction every day. Good, strong wind. It's a nice, long, narrow lake, so lots of opportunities to sail up it. We certainly do that every day. So our main location is at Huntington Lake. 30 minutes down the mountain, we have an island at Shaver Lake. So Shaver Lake is more of a round lake. Size-wise, it's smaller than Huntington. It is a little bit warmer, which is exciting. And also the temperature, the air temperature is warmer at Shaver. It's closer to the valley, so that boost in temperature, I would say it actually gets hot at Shaver, whereas it doesn't really ever feel hot at main camp. But Shaver, we have this island outpost there, and it is one of the highlights of a 2-week session. Our older campers, so everyone except the youngest age group, will spend 1 or 2 nights out on Shaver Island. They go with just their sleeping bag, a change of clothes, pretty rustic. We do have generators for power out there, and we have porta potties as our toilets. Don't have running water. It's really a kind of a fun, rustic camping experience within the greater camp. But the kids sleep out on the beach under the stars. Really fun kind of experience for them with that. And the only thing we do there, the water sports. So kneeboarding, wakeboarding, water skiing, and some wake surfing as well. And so campers are really able to hone their skills and work on progressing in those areas. And also it's just really fun to sleep out on the beach, to kind of have the more camping meals together, and to be out on the boat and in the water for multiple hours every day is a real treat. It's something I worked at Shaver when I was a counselor as well. And it's just one of those unique, fun places in camp. When you describe it, it doesn't sound that glamorous, and it's not. There's no glamour whatsoever, but I think that's what makes it so fun and so charming and such a fun part of what we do at camp.
You mentioned with the outdoor leadership course, backpacking. Is there any other backpacking or out of camp type experiences besides Shaver?
Yeah, so we actually have our 2 middle age groups. So we have four age groups total. We have our 2 middle age groups go out on backpacking trips, just a 24-hour trip. It's actually not even quite 24 hours, but they usually either leave from camp or we take them in a van to a location just a couple miles from camp, and sometimes they'll even hike back in. But they go on just maybe a 3-mile backpacking trip. Not a lot of gear involved because they're not going very far. So it's a really fun introduction to backpacking. And with the older kids, we give them an opportunity to sign up to go on a little bit of a longer trip when they really love it. But those backpacking trips are really important. We do teach them the leave no trace principles, teach them how to be good stewards of the environment, and we follow all those ideas as we're out there on the trail, making sure that we're not disturbing other people and nature. But they get to go out backpacking. They get to cook their meals over a fire or a camp stove, and just kind of play, have a little bit of unstructured free play in the woods, which I think is just so valuable and kids don't get enough of.
Sure.
But they get to spend their 24 hours away from camp, hike back in. It feels like a really big accomplishment. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the campers really love it, even the ones who are more reluctant to go on a hike. The hike is certainly not difficult. And the most fun is once you get to the campsite and kind of setting up their beds and just kind of having that nature play.
Sure. So you mentioned earlier about how like the kids go to activities with their group. What if a kid really doesn't want to do something? Like they just, they would rather not do whatever it is, sailing. Do they have to do it? Like, how does that work?
We certainly want to encourage kids to try as much as they can while they're at camp. And one of the things that having them go to the activities together gives us the opportunity to do is to put them at those activities that they may not sign up for on their own if we gave them the choice. So they're given the opportunity to go to every activity or most of the activities at camp. If they don't want to actually try the activity, that's okay. we do have a challenge by choice philosophy. We want to make sure that every camper is trying what they're comfortable trying, but we want the counselors to push as far as they can and make sure that they give every opportunity. So if a camper is really scared of horses, maybe success for that camper can be defined as feeding a horse or grooming a horse. It doesn't have to be that they've ridden the horse and that's the only way to experience success at the activity. And so if it's just putting on the water skis and not getting in the water, we want to make sure that counselors have a really broad definition of what success at each activity is, and how to get campers to decide for themselves what they want their goal to be, and then to have that cabin group support them in achieving that goal. And certainly I have lots of experience. There are some activities at camp after 25 years are still, I have to really dig deep to challenge myself to enjoy them.
For example,
you know what? Horses, not my favorite. But every couple of years, I want to make sure I get on a horse and make it happen. And I've certainly become a lot more comfortable just helping with wrangling horses and feeding horses and that kind of thing over the years. So I think, I'm a good example of someone who's been able to kind of define success differently. I will ride a horse. I certainly will do that. I think it's good to push myself to do that. But I think it's a very real thing that we need to recognize that, we're not all going to love every activity at camp. And so just having that open conversation with campers about it's okay for you to be scared. And it's okay for you to not want to do something, and you have to decide for yourself, what are you comfortable trying? How can I support you in that? And how can we cheer you on? But never would we, throw a camper in the water or make them to do something that they really have stated they did not want to do.
Okay, so what about a kid who loves horses or really wants to do more of something? How does that work?
Sure. So every morning and afternoon, to me, the camp rhythm really falls with meals. So we have an activity between breakfast and lunch. We have an activity between lunch and dinner. Those are the two main activity times during the day. And those are when you're going with your cabin group to an activity. You're assigned to that activity. So we've mapped their experience out for them in that way. After dinner, most nights at camp is something called free time. And it's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not free, but it's free in that you get to choose what you do as an individual. So at breakfast and lunch, we have signups for free time at night, and campers can sign up as individuals to go back to an activity that they really loved, to try something new. Some of the activities that we only offer in free time, like guitar, it's just a 1.5 hour fun period where you can focus on a skill like that. But you can go back to an activity you really loved, try an activity that you haven't tried yet because your cabin hasn't been assigned to it, or even try something that's only offered during that free time period.
Okay, so they have kind of mostly they're with their group, but there's a little bit of an opportunity to try something.
Right, and then we also have a couple opportunities in the morning. Certainly, like kids who love horses can wake up early to feed the horses and muck their stalls. Who knew? That's really fun for some people. But you know what? It's full every day. So there are kids at camp who really want to do that. And also we offer some other early morning activities. Sometimes we'll do like paddleboard yoga, where a counselor will lead yoga on a paddleboard on the lake. And the mist is rising. It's really pretty. And then also our water sports activities. So kneeboarding, wakeboarding, water skiing. Campers can wake up early and do that as well.
Okay, that's great. I don't think we mentioned, how long has Gold Arrow been around, and where do the campers come from, and how many kids are there all together? Because I forgot that.
Oh, yeah. So camp was founded in 1933. So we've been around for a lot of years. We celebrated our 85th summer last year, which was pretty exciting. It was a fun celebration. And most of our campers come from Southern California or kind of the Bay Area. I would say majority from Southern California, kind of LA, Orange County, plenty from San Diego. We have bus stops in all of those locations. And we also have lots of campers from other states and even other countries that are coming to camp every year. And again, bringing it back to me, my family actually moved from Southern California to Michigan when I was in junior high. And camp was the thing that connected me. So I remember when my dad told us we were moving, the first question I asked was, can I still go to camp? And so I think we have other families that are kind of in that same situation. And certainly there's no barrier, but we have lots of campers from kind of across the country and other countries as well that have found us for however they've done it, but they certainly come back every year.
Okay, so Alison, do you have any just like input that you've gotten or feedback from families or any quotes that you'd like to share about camp that you've heard from either parents or campers?
I think what strikes me most when I talk with campers is just how much they feel like camp is home to them, and I certainly feel the same way. But to hear a camper who spends 2 weeks at camp thinking that it's like a second home to them, they're not saying that about school. They're not saying that about a lot of other things in their lives. And so I just love that connection that they feel, both with the place and the people and the vibe and everything. And I love that we can be a community that is inclusive of everyone and where everyone feels like they do belong and that they're valued and celebrated as who they are as an individual. I think that's really special.
Mm, it is. Do you have any quotes you want to read?
I don't, but I realized I never answered your question about how many kids are at camp.
Thank you.
At once. So we have about 310 kids at camp in a regular 2-week session. We have 31 cabins, 8 to 10 campers in each cabin. So we'll have up to 310 kids at a time. Our 1-week session at the end of the summer is typically smaller. We only have about 150 kids during that program. Mm-hmm. And then that 1 week at the beginning of the summer when we're on Shaver Island is only about 40 kids. They get so much boat time and so much fun.
How many, you said 8 to 10 kids in each cabin. How many counselors are in there, those cabins?
Typically, definitely 2 is as a minimum, but usually we have 3 counselors, sometimes even 4 counselors. Again, one is that group counselor who goes around to the activities with the kids. The other counselors that are in the cabin are called activity counselors. They're the ones who are instructing the activities, but they still sleep in the cabin with the kids. They eat meals together with that cabin group on the dining porch. They have their own designated table to sit together. And they spend campfire time and rest hour and all the downtime with their cabin. So they're very much still a huge part of the cabin life and the experience for the kids.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so if people want to find out more about Gold Arrow, where do they go?
I think a great place to start is goldarrowcamp.com. Our website is great. We just actually had a little redesign, so it's even better than it used to be. Also on social media, and I think just give us a call. We love to talk with prospective camp families. We love to do visits to homes, and we also have some informational parties kind of in the spring leading up to the summer. We have one in the LA area and then one in the Bay Area as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Happy Campers interview series. I think I did a pretty good job of holding myself back from answering my own question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for this Happy Campers interview bonus podcast episode. If you're interested in learning more about how you can bring home some of the magic of summer camp, I'd love for you to pick up a copy of my book, Happy Campers, 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. It's available for pre-order now and comes out on May 7th. And you can find more information about it on my website by going to happycampersbook.com. To thank you for pre-ordering the book, I have a couple of fun freebies. The first of which is the first chapter, Camp Secret Number 1, Connection Comes First. I'll also send you an invitation to join my private Facebook group that's called the Happy Campers Book Club, where we'll be sharing resources, videos, and conversation about raising kids who become thriving adults. To access these freebies, simply pre-order your copy of the book and then fill out the form at happycampersbook.com. Together, we can spread the happiness of summer camp to the whole world.